Welcome back to ZMS Esports Studio, your home for the coverage of virtual cycling racing. And you're joined here with yours truly, Mark, as I navigate you through stage 4 of the React EU Cycling Race Series. And speaking of, where are we racing today? Well, we are going to be racing in Kielder in the north of England, and we have 38.2 kilometers to go. And this is the north of England, which is incredibly hilly. So there's going to be a lot of climbing involved. I'm sure we're going to see the big powerhouses of climbing, such as Keith H, come into very aggressive play today. And that's 148 meters of climbing, so not the worst for the north of England, but still quite aggressive for only 38.2 kilometers. And how do we stand on our league table so far? Well, as we can see, Keith H, that powerful climber we were talking about, is in the top spot with a total of 516 points, and I'm sure we're going to see him come into play today, with OTR rounded out the top 3 spots. However, the Slovenian, the powerhouse that is, and the pro racer in real life, Igor Kopse, his amazing win last week has propelled him up to 5th place, so we're going to have to keep an eager eye on Igor to see how that one plays out today. So with just under a minute left to go, let's jump on over to that start line and see our athletes getting ready to propel off of that start line. So here we go. And again, the thing that I truly love in Wahoo RGT is the full customizability of your avatar. And we can see all those different jerseys and kits in world, in game, including that awesome Stop the War jersey in support of Ukraine. So just under 10 seconds to go. And we can see our OTR athletes there ready to rock and or roll. Seeing those big power numbers beginning to spike, ready. And here we go straight into a climb. And Jay Rudabab surging straight off the front there, giving us a really big, powerful, I believe that's 6.3 watts per kilo that I'm seeing there. Keith H is chasing for 2nd place there, really beginning to close down that gap as well. Right into the red. So Jay Rabab is right into his anaerobic effort already. So way above threshold. That color-coded bar, green is around about threshold, maybe a little bit under. And red is, of course, way into your anaerobic. So we're seeing a very strong effort right off the front, opening up a good lead. Wonderful helicopter cam here provided by our wonderful vision mixer Damon. So Keith H there, got another OTR rider in chase. I'm sure in whatever method they're communicating, whether that's Wahoo RGT's race radio or whether that is via Discord. I'm sure they're communicating on team tactics and on draft tactics. So Peter Austin and D Miller there beginning to push ahead as well, forming a bit of a peloton with all the OTR top athletes coming together and working together. And we're seeing some incredible speed here, clipping at around about 40 k's per hour. And it looks like we have our honorary North American in the Team USA kit. A fantastic chase pack here. Really beginning to form up, people choosing their lane selection. And there's OTR riders clearly working together. So those OTR athletes, I'm sure, are going to be pacing their effort, ready to catch Jay Rabab. Seeing our leads here peak at around about 4 watts per kilo. Very impressive effort that is being sustained here. And the thing that's going to be somewhat tiring about these climbs is what I'm beginning to notice is they are very, very incremental. Very small climb numbers, but over a very long distance. That's going to add on fatigue. That is certainly going to whittle away at some of the effort of some of the athletes on course today. So Jay there, still surging ahead, still flying as it were. Look at that. Almost serene by the fact that he is not, the view that we have of him is not cluttered by other riders. And certainly from this aerial cam, that adds to that serene nature of it for sure. So it looks like coming into a bit of a downhill and seeing that effort ebb off a little bit, which I'm sure Jay is going to be happy to do. All right, we're back with our chase group here. Keith H back on the front of this chase group. And we're beginning to see more athletes coming in for an attack. And I'm sure more OTR riders coming in to join the team as well. B-Hap there doing a great catch-up effort. So it looks like Keith in the lead has got about 180 meters to ebb away at on Jay Rabab, but Jay doing still above threshold effort. And the question is going to be, how long can Jay hold that for? Is it going to be something that is going to be whittled away at? Or will he be able to hold that lead and do some kind of superhuman effort? I love seeing these helicopter cams, very reminiscent of the helicopter cams from the Tour de France. Our team here sticking close together. I'm sure, again, to quote this again, that the OTR team is pacing their draft benefit and waiting for the right moment to strike, to eat at that gap. So today we are of course in Wahoo RGT, and Wahoo RGT has some unique advantages, some unique selling points over other virtual cycling platforms. The main one being Magic Roads. So Magic Roads allows you to simulate the rides that you have out in the real world. You would just open up your main screen in the app, go down to Magic Roads, and you can select quick ride straight away, and you can select the Magic Roads that you have available to you based on your .fit, I believe, or .gtx files, and then you can select quick ride and off you go. And it will simulate everything. So that will simulate the cornering, the elevation profile, and it will also simulate the biome to its best possibilities, and you can even schedule those in for group rides with your calendar. It's something that has to be seen to be believed, that you can replicate your real-world rides in the virtual space. I would recommend it. It's really fun, and it's a great way to get involved in the virtual space and train for your real-world rides as you get ready for the summer. I know that I'm just waiting for the final flurries of winter to dissipate here in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan in Canada. And then I'm going to be out on my carbon road bike, my Norco, so it is Canadian also, my Norco CRR. Hoping to fly on that this summer. You can also add bots to your ride and control the number of bots allowed into your Magic Roads rides. So why not jump on over to Wahoo RGT and give it a try today? So we've got A Pen here, who is surging ahead in the effort to whittle away at that breakaway that Jay Rabab formed right off that start line. And we can see here Gordon Jackson and Carl Axel Zanderperson going pretty hard on their efforts here. Looks like Carl is in a high tension gear and going for a lower cadence, so going for those power numbers more than anything, and really giving some for that chase effort. All right, so we've got Keith H back leading the charge, surging ahead, opening up a little bit of a gap. I'm sure looking to have his teammates populate said gap as we begin to push ahead. We're seeing those power numbers begin to equalize to that of Jay Rabab. We're beginning to see those numbers, that distance, the numbers of meters beginning to drop. So let's see what Jay can hold and for how long. Speaking of, let's see where Jay is and what he's doing right now. Look at that, still over threshold, still surging ahead. But again, that question is, for how long? Is Jay going to cook his effort? Is Jay going to spike his cardio system too high? Or has he got this in the bag already? Only time will tell, as we are just about 8 kilometers in and 11 minutes into our race. So Tony Lake there pushing ahead for OTR, with Keith and Peter beginning to close that gap. I'm sure they are alternating their effort and communicating such in, again, whatever method they are using to communicate, whether Wahoo RGT's baked in race radio or Discord, to discuss who's going to be pulling on the front and who's going to be using the draft benefit, and I'm sure they're swapping said effort as they go. And here we go, Carl is in contention as well, rounding out that top podium spot at the moment and getting in behind Tony Lake, using that draft benefit. to really push ahead. We also have Peter Austin here, also with OTR, beginning to fill in the gaps of this pace line, arguably a pace line. They're beginning to hold steady with that distance away from Jonathan at the front there. All right, I'm back, and we've got EH and Alexander pushing for that second place position. And Peter Austin also pushing ahead here, looking to catch up with his OTR teammates. Still holding fairly steady to that gap with Jonathan ahead. But that chase number, that big power number from Carl is really spiking. Obviously dropping now as we're going into that downhill, but we're beginning to see that power that we're familiar with from Carl coming into play in this chase effort. Looking to ebb away at Jonathan's increasingly impressive breakaway. So we've got Carl Axel here, holding fairly steady with this chase pack. And our chase pack here is separated out into two smaller packs. There we go, Peter Austin has just caught up to his OTR teammates here as they look to reconnect with the main attack chase pack straight ahead of them. And we've got Gordon and Carl Axel here. Getting to see that pain face on Carl. Great stuff. Keep it up. Hi, Daniel here, looking to catch up with the chase packs ahead. Putting in some good speed numbers. Freewheeling for a bit of a downhill, which is always a blessing in any race. When you get a bit of a downhill and you can freewheel, as it's known in North America, or coasting, as it's known in the rest of the world, to kind of give your cardio system a bit of a break. Give your quads some time to ease up a bit, give those glutes a bit of time to feel like they're a lot less on fire, shall we say. And T Wood here also chasing to catch up. And another smaller chase pack with some other OTR team members looking to bridge some of that gap ahead of them. And working together with a bit of a peloton here. We have John Rogers from Ireland, the Republic of Ireland. I'm sure he's powered by Cole Cannon for his big powered efforts today. And Jay Goldberg as well. Jason Goldberg. With that awesome No to War or Stop the War kit in support of Ukraine. Again, that's one of the great features about Wahoo RGT is the full customizability of your avatar. Not only can you customize to teams with team kits, but you'll also have national kits. For example, the kit that I race with, my avatar races with in Wahoo RGT is Cycling Canada Cyclisme, which is the bilingual name for Cycling Canada, the organization behind Team Canada's various cycling teams. There's also Team GMB, Team USA, and various others as well. So we're here with two OTR riders from the UK looking to catch up with that big chase pack ahead as we're going into not the steepest climb, but when you're in a high tension gear for a road race, it's deceptive. It's really going to eat away at your quads and your glutes, and you're just going to feel that fire. And Jonathan Rhubarb still just flying. Look at him. Again, looks serene from this aerial helicopter view, unobstructed by other riders, unobstructed by the flurry, if you will. But how's our main chase pack doing? Are they beginning to eat away at that breakaway? Oh, it's dropping down again, those numbers. Let's see if they can really eat away at that and ebb that down. But Jonathan is just holding strong. Over 4 watts per kilo still. Carl here beginning to join with his Swiss counterpart ahead. Denis Verol. And looking to eat away at that gap, which they're beginning to do. Is this the beginning of turning the tide against Jonathan Rhubarb ahead? Maybe soaring Swede, Carl Axel, is going to be the one to eat away at that tarmac that lies between them. So we've got Gordon Jackson here live and Carl Axel. Again, great paint faces. Love it, guys. Keep it up. And Keith H is back with Carl, holding tight to that rear wheel. Almost as though he's being towed. Tony Lake also with OTR. both showing us that they are the powerhouses of OTR. I was looking to see what team Carl Axel is on, and now I can see it. It's RGT Sweden. So Carl is representing RGT Sweden and doing some fantastic effort. Denis Varol has caught onto the back here. So the speedy Slovenian Igor Kopse is not here today, but that's maybe going to cost him in the league table. But let's see what he does next race he's back. That was an absolutely incredible effort on the last ride. So we've got Christophe Canton here with the PDL team. And keeping very stable with this pack. I like the fact that they're kind of spread out. It's almost like protect the president. Or what's that called in paintballing? I believe that is protect the president, isn't it? Where you have the president in the middle. And we've got David Miller here as well from the UK with Team OTR. So we're seeing OTR spread out quite a way over today's map. And that is great to see them in so many places. And great to see this chase pack beginning to edge away at the distance between them and our main chase attack pack up in the front. And we're here with T Wood from the UK. Over threshold, looking to bridge that gap. Kind of in no man's land right here. And Tim Wood. Good effort, Tim. Nice work over effort. And we've got Romania. I believe Romania's Daniel. Garimia Daniel. And fantastic effort as well, keeping very stable around threshold. Good effort, pacing the effort. Good work. So it looks like Jonathan Rabab is beginning to open up that gap again. So is it fair to say that it is quite possible that Jonathan Rabab has this in the bag? And maybe if the other athletes are listening to my words here, maybe that's the spur they need to really press on, to really eat away at that tarmac that lies ahead of them, between them and Jay Rabab. Eat away at it like they're a hungry man and this is a big meal. And we've got Sean Laval beginning to catch up with Jay Goldberg ahead. Jason Goldberg. And Andy Macker here. So I'm not certain what happened, but that chase pack that was chasing to catch up with the main chase pack in the lead has seemed to have dissipated a bit. Let's see what they can do to catch up here. So we got Denis Varol on the front there, really pressing ahead, and Carl Axel has fallen in behind, I should say, to hold that rear wheel of Denis and use that draft benefit to relax a bit, perhaps pace that effort and get ready for those sprints and those surges that we know that Carl has in him and that we know that he's going to put down, I'm pretty sure, very soon. And again, appears to be in a high attention gear, as we can see on his camera view here, and doing a lower cadence. So focusing on big power and big effort more than fast feet. Peter Austin just about closing that gap to connect onto the rear wheel of G. Jackson ahead. Sticking with his OTR teammates here. Again, not the hardest of climbs, but the climbs are so incremental across this map for such a long time that this is where we're beginning to see that fatigue come in. I know that feeling myself. I did the Iron Horse as a solo time trial yesterday, and wowie, you feel that by the time you get to the end of that 28 kilometers. In fact, you feel it a lot sooner than the end of that 28 kilometers, let me put it that way. In the middle of that course. Jonathan Rhubarb here, that gap just seems to be growing and growing. We're at half a kilometer now. But Carl, who now is surging ahead in that lead of Chase, he is beginning to slightly ebb away at it, but he's at least keeping it consistent. We've still got 18 kilometers, so there's enough time yet for that gap to be eaten away at. And again, how long can Jonathan hold this? Here we go, that number's beginning to drop now. Keeping a nice pace line here, and I think everyone is trying their best to hold the rear wheel in front, as we can see with Denny here. And Tony Lake as well, who's trying to catch up to Keith H in front. There we go, right into the red, right into that anaerobic. Alright, so Carl is falling back in, getting some of that rest, resting up ready for the next big surge. And Keith H is taking over his turn on the lead of this peloton. So I'm sure all four of these athletes are communicating together and working together somehow behind the scenes, whether that's with the baked-in Wahoo RGT race radio or perhaps even through Discord. And look at that fantastic pace line, keeping very stable together. A little bit of a downhill as we saw a little bit of a freewheel there from Keith. And again, it's always welcome whenever you have those downhills to just sail along and let some of that pain out of the quads, let some of that feeling of absolute fiery lava out of your glutes, and just let your cardio effort begin to soothe a bit. And we have a secondary chase group here, beginning to edge away at that gap that's formed between them and the main chase group. Great efforts here, and I think again beginning to cotton on to the fact that maybe doing a paceline effort is going to help them catch up, and maybe dropping some of those team rivalries to work together so that everyone can surge ahead. Tony Lake taking his turn on the front of our pace line, taking his turn pulling. And we can see over threshold there, just beneath anaerobic. And really getting into that very high effort. The fact that his anaerobic is not even watts per kilo, or sorry, the fact that it's not even anaerobic for him to be doing 5 watts per kilo is very impressive. Carl here is catching up with the pace line. I'm sure again ready to surge at any point soon. And great pain faces there, both from Gordon and Carl. Jonathan Rhubarb still just flying. I do love our helicopter cams. All of our virtual cameras, of course, are provided and maintained by Damon. Wonderful vision mixer, and we can see Damon live there from London in the UK. Thank you, Damon. Great work that you do. And so Denis is now the one taking his turn on the front of our chase pace line. That gap has opened up again between the pace line and Denis, back around about half a kilometer. Around about 5 watts per kilo from Denis, 4 to 5 watts. There might still be enough time just to edge away at Jonathan's lead, but it looks like Jonathan is determined not to drop that power. Carl beginning to surge, giving us some fantastic over 5 watt per kilo effort. And that pace line beginning to dissipate now, as we can see. Drop in Keith, drop in Tony Lake, drop in Arimia. So I'm beginning to wonder, are Denis and Carl still working together, or is this active competition now? And we have Jonathan here, still unobstructed by other riders, just sailing along. I believe we're seeing Denis and Carl in active competition now, both beginning to do their surges, their pushes. Still with 14 kilometers to go, however, so hopefully they don't cook their efforts before it's time, before they need to give that finish line sprint, because there is some aggressive climbing coming up, and see on our elevation profile at the bottom of the screen. And we have our secondary chase pack, still just eating away at that distance between them and the main chase pack. Great work, guys. Keep it up. So with 14 kilometers left to go, let's look at some of that unique functionality of Wahoo RGT once again. So far, we have spoken about Magic Roads, and we're going to cover that once again. So to get into Magic Roads, just open up the main screen of the app, go into your menu, then go down to Magic Roads, and to ride straight away with any of your already loaded Magic Roads, or any of the ones already there loaded by other users, just select the one you want and select Quick Ride. Or you can choose to go to the user webpage and look at upcoming events via the calendar and share the ride with others. You can also choose from your Magic Road library on the webpage, and you can use it to create a race in mere seconds by choosing the date and time, and the number of spots, and various other functionality that you can add to your ride. Magic Roads help you create your favorite rides from out in the real world, giving you all of those wonderful corners, chicanes, rises, peaks and drops that you would have felt in the real world. So far, it's the graphical interpretation of real road riding, the virtual cycling space, and it's a wonderful system that I encourage you to try. So we're here with Patrick Hazen, doing some pretty solid effort here. and in that wonderful Belgian kit. And Karsten Rasgaard also looking to catch up with those athletes ahead. And we're here with OTR rider Shane Blackmore. Again, looking to close that gap with those riders ahead, looking to eat away at that tarmac between them. And how is that distance between Jonathan and our chase pack coming along? So we've got Denis here, he's got that back beneath half a kilometre. So there's still time, just about enough time maybe to eat away at that half a kilometre. But Jonathan is determined not to let that power drop. And here beginning to give us that above threshold effort, getting close to his anaerobic. A very impressive 5 watts per kilo. I have a feeling that Denis and Carl are working together and are using each other's draft benefit and are communicating when to get onto the front and pull, and when they're a little bit exhausted and need to drop into the draft benefit. Gordon and Carl there, again, wonderful pain faces, wonderful effort. And we're back here mostly with OTR riders and with BHAP from the United States. And Gordon Jackson there just in behind, getting some of that draft benefit. And I'm sure the OTR riders are communicating with each other again on when to be pulling on the front and when they need to drop in line, as we can see with their pack effort here. So Jonathan still just flying on the front. He could almost raise the mast because he is just sailing. So Carl is in second place at the moment. We've got Keith H and Tony Lake. They're working together, they're over threshold, and they're looking to catch up with Denis and Carl ahead of them. And there we go, we can see that power of Keith H as a climber coming into play here. Look at that, above threshold the entire way. Keith, of course, is our #1 in the React e-cycling race series right now with 518 points total. And let's see what today's effort does to that when we come back next Friday with the results from this week's race. Pete Austin taking his turn on the front of those OTR riders, looking to really push ahead, looking to really eat away at that gap ahead. Again, over threshold, just beneath anaerobic, just hitting anaerobic now. Great work, guys. Jonathan still just surging ahead, trying his best to keep it actively above 4 watts per kilo for his effort, or at least around that number. He will be looking at his numbers, I'm sure, in the real world, whether he's on rollers or on a sorry, on a turbo or on a direct drive smart trainer. I'm sure he's looking at his numbers in game, and he's figured out that if he keeps it around 4 watts per kilo, he can hold the distance against those riders trying to catch his rear wheel. So we've just crossed 9 kilometers left to go. And it might be in the bag now for Jonathan. But Denis is eating away at those numbers. Keith H and Tony Lake are beginning to eat away at the numbers of Denis and Carl ahead of them as well, so that we might actually see that pack begin to reform. So Carl taking his turn on the front, well into his anaerobic, 5.4 watts per kilo, very impressive power numbers. I can say that for certain. And that will be from being in that very high tension gear and doing that lower cadence. Certainly I know that I burn my quads if I do that for too long, and I have to shift down, do fast street for a little while and come back up. But I'm very impressed to see that Carl can hold that for so long. And Denis holding very tight to that rear wheel. Again, I feel somewhat certain that they're working together and communicating as such behind the scenes here. That gap has begun to elevate again, coming back up to half a kilometer between Denis and Carl and Jonathan ahead. But we are into our kind of gentle uphills and mostly downhills for the next few kilometers. So this might give Carl and Denis a chance to eat away at that lead. And this is where we are today, Kielder in the north of England, in Northumbria. Going round the lake there because we are in the Lake District. And we are in those last several kilometers. I love seeing these webcams, seeing that very heavy and hard effort, and I know what Carl must be feeling right now through those quads, through those glutes, doing that higher tension gear. Maybe having dropped off a gear, it looks like, for now, just to spin out those quads a bit, which I certainly don't blame him. Being able to hold that high tension for such a long time is very impressive, but it will also sting, I'm certain. So Jonathan still being able to hold at around about 4 watts per kilo, still holding at the probably just beneath his anaerobic here, which is incredibly impressive that he's done that for so long. Keith H and Tony Lake still working together to catch up to Denis and Carl ahead. Great work, guys. There we go. And it looks like they're communicating as to switch around as to who's going to be taking the turn on the front here. So Tony moving up to reposition on the front and take his turn pulling, it looks like. Or maybe not. So just under 6 kilometers left to go. Carl and Denis still working together still swapping rear wheels. Two countries that North American residents, citizens, if you will, always confused with each other. Switzerland and Sweden, not even remotely close to each other, but working together, working as a team of nations confused for one another. We can see our OTR athletes here working together as a pack still and beginning to play catch up to Keith and Tony ahead of them, and they've begun to eat away at that gap. They've not got too much left to go. It's about 3/4 of a kilometre. They've really ebbed away at that, and that's a fantastic effort, guys. Well done. And it does look like Carl and Denis have really brought that number down against Jonathan ahead of them. They've brought that under 400 meters now. And we can see Jonathan's power number beginning to spike, as I'm sure he's watching those numbers in race, and he's beginning to get a little bit anxious maybe. So Carl taking his turn on the front, very much over threshold here. Very impressive effort, as we always see from Carl. Denis doing a similar effort too, as they push through this very aggressive climb. Carl there really getting into the hoods, really leaning into the hoods, really pressing down on those crank arms. Great stuff. Alright, so it looks like Jonathan has gained some more of a lead in that breakaway, but that is seemingly just from that downhill gravitational benefit as he's crested that hill and has presumably been spun out and used gravity to his advantage. So just over 3 kilometers left to go. And our riders here look like they're really beginning to eat away at that distance between them and Tony and Keith. And that's fantastic stuff. It looks like Arimia has really pushed ahead of Tony and Keith as well. So that's another fantastic surge and a fantastic effort from our Romanian rider. So Jonathan still just flying. He really has used that downhill advantage to its maximum efficiency and is really surging ahead with just over 2 3/4 kilometers left to go. There we go, peaking above 40 kilometers per hour, almost hitting 42 here. Really getting a dab of that hot sauce, if you will. Getting that pep he needs to really push ahead for these final 2.5 kilometers. There we go, Denis taking his turn on the front. Really pushing above threshold, giving us some great power here trying to eat up some of that gap between both Denis, Carl and Jonathan ahead of them. Final 2 kilometers, and I hate to say it, I'd love this to be anybody's game as a commentator and really love to keep that excitement going, but it does look like with 2 kilometers left and half a kilometer distance, it does look like Jonathan perhaps has this in the bag. It would take an incredible effort to eat away at that, or a very unfortunate technical for Jonathan to fall behind. So Carl for RGT Sweden is really pushing ahead here. And they've got that number down beneath 500. So under a kilometer and a half remaining. Let's take a look at Jonathan. How's he holding up on the front there? There we go, still just flying. Very impressive this entire race. Holding around or above 4 watts per kilo for the entire time. He's really done his napkin mathematics, if you will, his mental arithmetic, and figured out that he needs to stay around about 4 watts per kilo to hold his breakaway, and he has truly achieved that. An absolutely phenomenal effort, as we can see from his color-coded bar, that he is above threshold and has been this entire time. So a truly incredible effort. And only 3/4 of a kilometer remaining. $500 meters. This is more just a case of when Jonathan crosses the finish line now, as opposed to who will be first. $250 meters. We're going to begin to see that finish line materialize into view, become more than just a mirage on the horizon. 100 meters. And here we go. It's in the bag for Jonathan. Absolutely phenomenal effort there from Jonathan Rabab. Well done, sir. Tony Lake here chasing, Keith H chasing. So who is going to take second place position? I'm sure this is when the camaraderie and teamwork is going to come crashing down. Who is going to surge? Who is going to sprint for that finish line? Who is going to press on for that second place position? Does Denis have this in the bag? Yes, he does. Fantastic effort to both Denis and Carl. And we've got Christophe Contant. See our riders there braking, I'm sure stepping on whatever crank arm they prefer to stand on, flicking their ankle out to unclip and stepping down out of that saddle, taking some much needed reprieve, I'm sure. And we've got Arimia Daniel here from here above threshold, just beneath that anaerobic, really pressing on for that 4th place position. A wonderful effort there from Arimia. Tony Lake here coming in for the 5th place position, rounding out the top 5 and placing Team OTR into the top 5. Wonderful effort, Tony. And we've got Christophe Canton. And Keith H. Keith H. following hot on the heels of Tony, also for OTR. Wonderful effort, Keith. And Christophe flying high above threshold, really surging ahead. For that 7th place position. Wonderful effort, Christophe. And now that secondary chase pack coming in hot. Peter Austin 8th. Apen, oh, G Jackson just pushed ahead for the 8th. So as our top 10 cross the line here, let's take a look at that league table as it begins to populate. So we have a whole 36 seconds ahead of that 2nd place position is Jonathan Rhubarb. That was a truly phenomenal effort. Denis Verreau, that 36 seconds behind. Just barely under a second behind is Carl Axel for RGT Sweden, rounding out our top 3. We have Arimia Daniel from Romania in 4th place, and rounded out our top 5, bringing OTR into the top 5, Tony Lake, with Keith H just behind. Keith H being our current #1 racer in the league. But we'll have to tune in next Friday to see what these results will do to our overall league table standings. Thank you for joining us today. It's been a real privilege to commentate for you today on this stage 4 of the React e-cycling race series. My name's Mark. You've been watching us live on ZMS eSports Studio. I'm off to eat some bao for lunch, but I hope you have a wonderful day.